look at all best week ever. So we have Emily Murdoch, Terri Brisbin, Jude Knight, Sandra Sookoo, and Heather McCollum with us this week. And I'm going to introduce everybody, and then I'm just going to get out of the way because you don't need to hear me talk when we have all of these wonderful authors to hear from. So we had obviously 5 releases this week, including a Saturday release, which we hardly ever do. That's Heather's book. But the first release this week is Emily Murdoch's The Duke is Mightier Than the Sword.
And this is a real test for Evelyn. There's 5 titles and 5 series she's got to remember.
5 authors and 5 titles, and I'm going to get them all in order. So The Duke is Mightier Than the Sword, and it's Duke's in Danger, and it's book 3.
Well done. Snaps for Evelyn.
Can you tell us about your book?
I can indeed. So if you've been following the series, which of course I hope you have, if you haven't, why not? Now is your chance to go back and read them. We are following dukes who maybe are a little bored of their lives, maybe a little tired of having to always obey what the rules say. And so they do what I think any people would do in that situation, and they go looking for danger. When we meet Montague Lancaster, who's the Duke of Caerphil, who's our hero for The Duke is Mightier Than the Sword, that's book 3, he's kind of lived some of the danger already. We meet him, he's been injured, it's a wartime injury, and he's essentially hiding in Oxford trying to ignore his doctor as best he can, which I think anyone who knows someone in a similar situation, it's pretty familiar. He's absolutely determined to go back to France. He feels this real sense of honour and duty and loyalty to the men that he's left there who are still fighting. But he's just bored out of his skull. He loves danger, he loves excitement, and he's very much not getting that. But he has taken up fencing, he's teaching that. We've then got Sarah Lockwood. She's I think she's one of the most difficult characters I've written because she's a poet. And as anyone who knows me knows, I know that I am not a poet. And so writing her was rather a challenge, and one I don't think I'm ever going to write again. She goes off in search of a poetry professor to help her. She's very frustrated that society deems her incapable of being a poet merely because she's a woman, and accidentally mistakes our Duke for said professor. And that's how the story starts. It's very kind of grumpy sunshine, very teacher-student. I love me the grumpy sunshine, but there is this natural tension that, you know, they're not going to end up in the same country. You know, if they both have what they want, he's going to go back to France, she's going to stay here. And so it's very words crossing blades with actions. It's, you know, fighting your growing feelings. You know, he's a hidden duke. He's kind of keeping a relatively low profile until a woman walks into his room and demands that he teaches her everything that he knows, which
yeah, but what we really want to know is, did you have to write poetry?
I did. So this is the downfall of, I was like, a poet, that's great. It's a little bit blue stocking, but it's a little bit unusual. You don't see many, you know, poet blue stockings. And I got about 3/4 of the way through the book, and I was like, "Oh no!" It's culminating to this.
Don't you hate that? I had to do that once.
Where she reveals the poetry she's been writing, and I just wrote in all caps, "Write good poetry here," and then kept going. And I got to the end. I was doing my drafts and my rewrites and my edits, and I kept putting it off, and I kept putting it off, and eventually I was like, "I can't send this book to my editor with no poetry. I have this big poetry is needed here." And I ended up having to write like several stanzas of rhyming couplets in a dramatic style, which I am never, ever do. It took me a day to do.
It's I bet.
It's less than a page. Less than a page. And I made a vow to myself at that point. I said, Emily, you are never writing a poet ever again.
Yeah, well, don't say that too often, because I had to do riddles for one book for Dragonblade. I'm never a scavenger hunt with riddles.
No, I'm not that clever. I really, really love this series. It's very fun. It's very lighthearted, but there are some more serious themes. And it's something that I was a little bit nervous about. I don't have a disability, and I'm not neurodiverse myself, but I want to see more of these characters in books. I really want to push myself as an author. I really want to be representative without taking over those identities. And I actually got a message this morning, which only made me cry a teeny tiny bit. And it was for a woman who said, you know, I've just read your book, and I actually have an injury very similar to Montague's, and I was really touched at how like sympathetic and realistic. And I was just like weeping quietly at my desk.
That's the best, because that is a thing, the worry about taking over somebody else's story, but needing to have diversity and needing to have characters represented is like,
it's so important. And one of the things that she said, it was a very long message, and I'm not going to say who it was because I didn't get her permission to give her name. But she said, the frustration with your body, that it's not the same as it was, but learning to love it again. And I was just sitting there like bawling my eyes out. So yes, this has been a really, really precious book for me to write. And I'm really excited for people to read it and kind of dive in and get to know these characters and fall in love with them, because I fell in love with them as I wrote them, even with the poetry. They are, they have these really deep resonances, which maybe clash just a wee bit, but I think that's part of the fun for me as an author anyway, and I'm pretty sure for most of our readers, they love the kind of, well, that's impossible by chapter 2, and then by chapter 20 you're like, how could they not? So I had a huge amount of fun, and I really hope people enjoy it.
Oh, wonderful. Well, it sounds great, and I know how much those letters from readers matter. So for the readers that are watching, it's, being an author is such a solitary profession that having somebody reach out is huge. So if you're ever on the fence thinking to yourself, I don't know if I should bother them with this, I don't want to, do it. Oh, send the email. because authors would love to hear.
Yeah, make us cry. It's not hard.
It really isn't. We're 3 steps away from Joan Wilder most of the time. So
seriously.
So our next release this week is Terri Brisbin's book. And Terri, I don't know if you can see us moving, but we can definitely see you moving. So
good. Yeah, I can see you now.
Good. Every time we try and figure out the technology, we get about a solid 80 to 85% of the way there, and never quite 100%. So I'm glad we're there this time. Yeah. But Terri's book is book 2 in the Unexpected Heirs of Scotland series, and it's A Lady's Agreement. Yes. And the cover for this one, my word, the cover for this one is gorgeous. Can you tell us about the book, and then also tell us about who the hero is inspired by? Because I love that story.
Yes, sure. So Unexpected Heirs of Scotland is about just that, people who inherit unexpectedly, whether it's wealth or properties or titles, and how that changes their lives. And, in many ways it makes things easier, but it doesn't always. And so this series is based on my celebrity crushes. Gentleman's Agreement. And we have up from the gutters of Glasgow, Ian Buchanan has basically fought his way to live and to succeed, and nothing stands in his way. Nobody does. There's a trail of dead bodies and secrets behind him. So I had a great time with him, because I've never really written a morally questionable hero. And it's very hard to make them a hero. And so he has decided his shipping business is just booming. He's moving from Glasgow to expand into Edinburgh's port, and he needs these certain buildings. And he has been unsuccessful at getting them. He finds out who he thinks the owner is, and he goes to make his plan inevitable for them. And he finds out it's a woman. And he is just not expecting that. And so all of his arguments fly. He sees this woman who stands up to him, and men don't do that. So he is intrigued, he's puzzled, he's confused. And as their meeting after meeting, encounter after encounter go on, he is wildly attracted to this widow who just stands in his way. And so it's very much opposites attract. It's very enemies to lovers. Grumpy Sunshine, yes. Oh, he is business, all business. So I had the most fun. There are encounters when she would refuse him or say no or question his word. I chortled. I was laughing. I was so excited by the challenge she was giving him. And there's a sexual challenge too. He is so attracted to her. And as a widow, it's kind of the last thing she's thinking about until he really makes her think about it. So a lot of
fun. When you make a hero work for it, that's a very good thing.
Very, very steamy build up, very sexy love scenes. I had such a good time. And, you know, the other authors probably realize this, readers may not. Sometimes when you're writing a story and something happens at the beginning and the hero says, I would never humiliate myself like that, you just can't wait for him to have to do that. And that was this book. As soon as the words were out of his mouth, I said, oh babe, you're going to be sorry you said that. So it's great, it's emotional. I had a lot of fun. And this hero is based on, those of you who may have watched General Hospital, this is based on my first Scot, my deepest crush, Duke Lavery, who is played by Scottish actor Ian Buchanan. And I just love Duke Lavery. He came in as a businessman. You found out that he was the son of a crime boss, and he was expected to carry on that crime in Port Charles. And so when I was thinking about this series and this hero, it had to be him. So I even named the character Ian Buchanan, though I twisted the name a bit. So very excited to get my first crush out there, or my second crush out there.
Oh, fun. Well, it sounds like a blast, and I love the idea of turning a hero on his head and making him work for it. I think that those books are so much fun.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Awesome. So the third release this week is Jude Knight's book, and it is the One Perfect Dance, and it's book 2 in the Twisted Tales series. Did you get it?
That's right.
Hot dog.
And it's close.
They're all based on fairy tales, and we've had the Lady Beast and the Lion's Den book was related to it too.
That's right. We had the frog. We've done the Beast, the Beauty and the Beast, and the Frog Prince. But
and we're dancing this time. So who do we have?
This is my Cinderella story. So, I mean, there had to be a Cinderella story, obviously. So a twist upon a Regency tale is a series of books that takes traditional fairy tales, reuses a lot of the elements, but interpreting them as natural happenstance in the Regency world, and with the extra twist that the hero and the heroine reverse roles.
I love that part of the series.
So my hero in this story is called Elijah Ashby. He has 2 wicked stepbrothers who call him Ash Boy, and a wicked stepfather. So it's the traditional setup. He's his mother remarried when he was 12, and since she became ill, he has been taking up all of her work, plus the work he'd been put to himself. He's now doing the work of 3 servants, but what his step family haven't realized is that he's nearly 21. He's run away before and been brought back because he's under his stepfather's guardianship. But with his mother dead and his 21st birthday approaching, he has plans. So I've given him a fairy godfather, the local vicar who was his tutor until he got pulled out of lessons in order to work harder, has arranged a job for him. He's going to be the secretary to a son of a duke, and he's off on the grand tour. But a few days before his 21st birthday, he receives an invitation to a ball. The ball is the coming out ball for a girl he used to play with, or at least protect, because she was 4 years younger than him, back in his village. Regina Kingsley, which was as close as I could get to calling her a princess, is the daughter of a viscount. She's wealthy. He's even more poverty-stricken than he was when he was a child in the village. Although he comes from a gentry background, he's never lived as a gentleman. And But they were friends, and she's got her parents' permission to invite him to the ball, which he can't do anything about because he doesn't have the clothes for it, except that the vicar has bought him a dinner suit or appropriate wear. So even so, it's the night before they're leaving. He thinks he can't go. He tells his new employer, and the new employer says, oh, yes, let's go to a ball. So they're off they get, they dressed up, go to the ball, where Regina has saved him a dance. And he can't dance because he has a bad leg after having been thrown down the stairs by one of the stepbrothers some years earlier.
Oh, come on.
I know, right? I mean, you've got a twist.
I want all the good things to happen to him.
So they sit the dance out. And afterwards, she feels it was the best dance of the whole ball, because she sat it out with Elijah and they talked for hours. Then the next day, he sails away and doesn't come back for 16 years.
Dude!
I know, right? I mean, I don't like to do perspective, okay? So Regina, meanwhile, the rest of her season ends in a disastrous way when one of Elijah's stepbrothers attempts to compromise her. And her father dies of a heart attack. I mean, you know, so this is such is life. So she marries
stuff, right?
So she marries her father's best friend, and the chapter 9 bridges the 16 years with a series of letters between her and Elijah. In chapter 8, she's married to Padmore, her father's friend. Her father's very, very close friend.
But also old, right?
Well, about halfway. He's in his 30s, but he was her father's extremely close friend. And so her mother is not very happy. So she doesn't speak to her mother for 16 years either. Yeah, no, I mean, it all works out. It all works out.
Baskets of kittens for everyone in this story. Baskets of kittens for everyone in that book.
Absolutely. So Ash, meanwhile,
the long hair and the puff, you know,
is traveling around the world with his employer, who becomes his best friend. And Rex Versi is actually the youngest brother of the hero of The Talons of the Lion.
Oh, cool.
So he was called Arthur. They were all given names, but names from the Round Table. But Ash calls him Rex because he reckons he's a little prince, a little king. And of course, he's been raised to be so. But they like each other very much. They get on marvelously well. They have wonderful adventures, and they write letters home, which Rex's sister takes to a publisher. So by the time they return to England 16 years later, they're famous travel writers.
And our hero has his fortune.
And our hero has his fortune from several sources, because they've also been spying for the Home Office and investing in all sorts of opportunities. Meanwhile, Padmore has become an invalid, and Regina has nursed him until for the remainder of his life, and she is now a widow, which isn't, I might add, why Elijah suddenly decides it's a good time to come home. Because there's the girl he's never forgotten. So from then on, we have a series of action and adventure and all kinds of things, including a nasty kidnapping, but also the growing attraction between the two. Elijah decides the day he sees her that he wants her for his wife. She's not so certain. She does want to get married because she wants a baby of her own. She's raised her husband's son, but she wants a baby of her own. And she certainly doesn't want to marry either of the stepbrothers, both of whom have been courting her.
Well, I would like for something bad to happen to them if we can arrange that, please. That would be.
We certainly can. My husband's a great fan for nasty things happening to villains. In my first book, I had the villain fall out of a coach and die. And my husband made me go back and write the scene so that he fell halfway out of the coach and bashed his head against a stone barn. So
we have to stay on Mr. Knight's good side because
well, this is true. And so while terrible things happen to my hero and heroine at various times along the way, in the end, they get theirs, right?
Awesome.
So,
and I just because it's a romance that we're going to end up with a happily ever after, so I can go with you on the lack of baskets of puppies and kittens because I know you have made the promise that we will get there in the end.
We will get there in the end, and I do like a really nasty villain. In fact, the villain that is what can I say, acting behind the scenes, the one that's turning the levers, the puppet master, is the villain in the next book, Snowy and the Seven Dwarves.
So he'll get his comeuppance.
He has to survive, I'm afraid. But then
just
only
this time. We don't have to.
Only this time.
Only this time. We can get rid of him.
He has the best death ever.
I was going to say, you get Mr. Knight working on that one.
Oh yes, I can always turn to him for a nasty fate.
Awesome.
So that's my Cinderella story. Shoes come into it. They eventually. One of the big themes of the last 2/3 of the book is the ball that my Regina is planning, her first ball ever since she's been living retired in the country, and he is to be her guest, and they're going to announce their betrothal at that ball, and doesn't quite work out as the way they expect, thanks to the stepbrothers. But I can assure you that the very last paragraph of the book mentions that they have finally had their one perfect dance, and it may not be exactly what you think it is.
It's okay. As long as you get me there in the end, I will stay with you. Now, this is the part of the talk where if I had party poppers, I would send them off. I'm not going to make that movement again in public. I'm going to keep my hands right here. Because our next Dragonblade release of the week is Sandra Sookoo's book, and it's her 150th book.
Woo!
Which is like a big deal. And it's Guarding the Widow Pellingham, and it is it's book 4 in the Wilful Winterborn series.
Yeah.
So, congratulations, Sandra. That is such a huge accomplishment. And I have loved seeing your preparation for the celebration because I just think that that's just a wonderful, wonderful idea and a wonderful thing to do. So congratulations on 150. Can you tell us about the book?
We've got quite the busy weekend ahead, I think. Anyway, this book was not planned. I had no idea. There were no characters. When Dragonblade came to me and said, "Hey, would you like to extend this series?" I'm like, "Sure, but I don't have any more characters left, you know." So then I had to invent other characters. Since the original series follows siblings, I'm like, okay, well, we don't have any more siblings, so we're gonna have to invent some. So what happened is this book takes place directly following book 3.5, I think, in the series. It's a novella because I had a bridge, between the two. Anyway, there's a huge scandal afoot in the Winterborn family. I don't really want to go into it because I don't want to ruin it for readers right now. But suffice it to say, my hero in this book has found himself with questionable paternity. So he's now related to the Winterborns, and what's more, you know, him and his siblings are really upset because, you know, it throws them into question. They don't know who they are because of the questionable paternity, you know, the family issues, the whole scandal that's rocking both his family and the Winterborns. And he's dealing with a stutter. So he doesn't like to be in society with the stutter. He doesn't know how to figure out who he is. And now that all of this other scandal is going on, it just makes it even more difficult. So when the widow comes along and he meets her at a society event, he's like in a library or a study or somewhere. It's been a while since I've written this book. I can't remember. So, you know, she tracks him down there and, you know, things happen and, you know, desire gets the better of him. And of course they're walked in on by the host and hostess. So, you know, he offers, oh, hey, look, we're engaged, you know. So, you know, you have that aspect. Well, also she's an heiress. So, and his coffers are empty, and that plays a part in it. But she's also being stalked by a guy that doesn't take no for an answer. So that's where the guarding part comes in. So throughout the book, you know, they have this dynamic between them. We really shouldn't act on this desire. This engagement's only for a short period of time until we can think of something else to do, you know, blah, blah, blah. And in the meanwhile, she helps him with his stutter. She helps him accept the stutter, you know, because you can't get rid of it. So you have to, you know, accept yourself. You know, that it's the story of acceptance, you know, and not only does he have to accept himself in that, but he's also got to accept that, you know, his dad's not who he thought his dad was, you know, the whole thing. And so, yeah.
He's a hero with an arc.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. He's got an arc. She's got a little arc. Hers is smaller than his, you know, because sometimes I flip-flop them. But in the end, everybody is happy. And, also he's a virgin at 41. So.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So that first time in the library study, because I can't remember where they are, that was interesting. My editor got a real good kick out of that.
That sounds like so much fun. Not just
I was really excited to portray the second half of this series, and it worked out really well for me not having any idea of what I was going to be doing when I set out to write this book. So yeah, I'm excited. I turned in the 5th book in the series a couple days ago, so I hope everybody likes it.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like a great setup. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks.
And our 5th book, which this 5-book release thing is, or 5-book a week release thing is that's a lot of books y'all are gonna have to read all weekend just to catch up. But our 5th book of this week is Heather McCollum's book, and it is The Highlander and the Counterfeit Queen, and it is book 3 in the book 3 in the Queen's Highlander series. And we've had poison gowns and all kinds of stuff in this series. What do we have this time, Heather?
Well, in this series, in this book, Cordelia Cranfield, she has come from a situation where her family has been accused of being traitors. Okay. And this takes place in the late 1500s. And I'm very excited about this series because I love to write Highlanders. I write Scottish Highlanders, but I also have a love for Tudor England, and I have a love for Queen Elizabeth I. And I've read everything on her I can find, and I just respect her so much and how she managed to do so much considering there were so many people trying to block her. And so I wanted to write a series where I could write Queen Elizabeth. So Dragonblade gave me that opportunity. I'm so thankful because I've had such fun with it. And this 3rd book, Cordelia Cranfield, Elizabeth is not sure if she can trust her or not. And so she has sort of asked her to take on a mission for her that could be a little dangerous, but it shouldn't be, to see that she is also loyal to her and that she's not what her parentage may have been. So Cordelia Cranfield looks a little bit like a young Queen Elizabeth. She's got red hair, like strawberry blonde hair. And because they didn't take photographs back then, it was drawn. People don't know unless they've met Queen Elizabeth exactly what she looks like. All right, so our hero is Marcus Ruthven, who also has issues with his father, and this is true history. His father kind of went back and forth between Mary Queen of Scots and and the people who opposed her, and where did his loyalties land? So Marcus has that same sort of yoke about him, proving himself to his sovereign, who is a very young King James up in Scotland. So he is actually working for the crown as a spy, and with the French, because the French are always trying to interfere and get Mary Queen of Scots, who has been put into house arrest by Queen Elizabeth, and she's Catholic. Elizabeth is not. And so the French and the Catholics are trying to get Mary Queen of Scots out of there. So Marcus has sort of infiltrated them and has come back over with a French contingency, because they have heard that Elizabeth is going to be secretly going to meet Mary Queen of Scots. Okay, because she never did, no matter what movie you see. Okay, but in my story, she is trying to sneak, okay, to go see her cousin. So she has tasked Cordelia to impersonate her on this trip, in order that she and her spy master, Francis Walsingham, can sneak away to Mary Queen of Scots and meet with her while Cordelia is pretending to be her going somewhere else. So when Marcus comes over with the French because nobody knows about the secret going to see Mary Queen of Scots, everybody sort of has now known about Elizabeth needing some time away from Whitehall and going this way. So Cordelia is pretending to be the queen, and Marcus is part of the ambush, the French ambush to steal the queen, right, and take her to France. So he rescues, while looking like he's kidnapping, the wrong queen, okay, the wrong person. And he doesn't know it at first, because he's got his questions, because she looks a lot younger than what she's supposed to be. Queen Elizabeth's supposed to be 41 years old at that time. And Cordelia is like 28 or 27 or, so she's younger. But Cordelia has to act like the queen, because she doesn't want him to know she's not the queen, because then he'll go try to get the real queen. And she needs to prove that the real queen will think she's in on it. So she's trying to prove herself not it. So there's a whole lot of mistaken identity stuff going on. And then this forbidden love that starts, because you can't just tup a queen. A virgin queen.
If we ever do Dragonblade merch, we are going to have that on a t-shirt.
Just tup a queen.
Just tup a queen. I want a coffee mug. I want notebooks.
So at first we've got this enemies to lovers, this mistaken identity. And when it comes out that when he realizes she's not really the queen and she has to admit it in order to save the real queen, she thinks he's going to be furious, but it's like volcano because she's not a queen. So anyways, and then we go on, and of course the real queen is in jeopardy. And so I got to write Queen Elizabeth and Sir Francis Walsingham, which is just so dear to my heart. And she is hilarious. And so there's always, I love to bring in these side characters that make things so much more fun. So it's kind of a romp. It's a kind of a fun thing. And I got to really get to play with Queen Elizabeth.
Oh, fun. Oh, it sounds like so much fun.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have time to talk about anything else because we just have books. We just have books. If you all want to do this again next week, we can do it again next week, and we pick a completely different topic.
Sure.
Like there are books for everyone this week. I'm so excited about all the releases. I'm so excited that you can always pick something. I always learn things that I didn't know. And as somebody who did not do particularly well in history, only did well enough not to get yelled at by their parents, seeing bits of history brought alive in romance, which is my favorite thing anyway, is really it's lovely. So I love that with Dragonblade books, you can always find something that is your personal flavor. And we've got a wide variety. We have a huge variety this week as well. All the Dragonblade books are their very best deal on pre-order and release. I say it every week because it's true every week. And even the books that release wide, Terri's books release wide. So if you read on other retailers, you want to grab it right now, because it will go into KU very shortly. So if you miss a release day price, or you miss a release week price, you can always read with your Kindle Unlimited subscription later on. So, ladies, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you all being here.
Thanks for having us.
It was a lot of fun.
It's always lovely to meet the other authors too that I'm sharing a week with.
And congratulations again, Sandra. What
Oh, yeah.
Thank
Very
you.
much so, yes.
Yep. We need party poppers. I'm not making the movement again.
Well, I'll be sure to post a lot of photos for you over the weekend.
Of the cake too, especially. I'm particularly looking forward to the cake.
Yeah, I go pick that up on Saturday. I've got a cake topper that I had somebody from Etsy make for me. And then my husband and I are taking a trip next month to celebrate.
Incredible.
Oh,
Well
nice.
earned.
Fantastic.
So I can be stressed out every day of the vacation because I'm not writing,
You got to fill the well.
Yep. It's very important.
Yeah,
You gotta fill the well.
definitely. Because my brain is really tired, you guys.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Well, ladies, it was a delight. This is my favorite part of the week. I love having a chance to talk with you all. So this was absolutely wonderful. Thanks again for taking the time to be here.
Sure.
Thank you, Evelyn.
Thanks.